Today, we're going to be showing some love to this beautiful, delicious, and also underused fruit, the eggplant. So be honest, you see these beautiful purple fruits in the grocery store, and most people, they just walk right on by. Why is that? Well, when you say eggplant, a couple things come to mind. There's eggplant parmesan and eggplant parmesan. Most people don't know what to do with these. Today, we're going to do a super simple, delicious eggplant focaccia bread, so the next time you're in the store, you don't have to pass these by. Pick one up and give it a try. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the bread dough. Now this is just a very simple pizza dough recipe. We're going to add our packet of yeast along with very warm water, not boiling, but warm, and sugar. We'll give that a little stir. And let that sit to make sure that our yeast is active. And as long as your yeast is alive, after about 5 minutes, you should have something that looks kind of like this, a happy, bubbly, foamy mixture, to which we're going to add olive oil, bread flour. You can use all-purpose, but bread flour has more gluten and works better when making bread. And salt. Now we add our dough hook. And we'll let that mix up for a few minutes. After a few minutes, all the flour should be incorporated in, and the dough should pull cleanly away from the sides. At this point, we can shut off the mixer. And what you should have is a slightly sticky, very soft ball of dough. Next, we're going to lightly flour our counter surface. Turn out our dough, give it a little sprinkle, flour our hands, and now we're going to work that dough for about 5 minutes. And with most doughs, a little sticky is better than too dry. So don't add too much flour, just enough to keep your hands from sticking to it. And when you're done, you should have a slightly sticky, very soft ball of dough. We're going to take our bowl, add a little olive oil to it, coat that around the bottom. A little more olive oil on the top. So from here, we're simply going to cover our bowl and place this in a warm place to rise. I like to use the inside of my oven with the oven light turned on but the oven off. Okay, so about a half hour before the dough is ready to be used, we need to prepare our eggplant. We're going to cut it into 1/4-inch slices. We can discard the top and the bottom. Now that we have our eggplant all cut up, we're going to add it to a large bowl. We're going to sprinkle it with salt. Move the pieces around and fan them out, and add a little bit more salt. Make sure to cover each piece thoroughly. What's going to happen is the salt is going to draw out some of the water and the bitterness from the eggplant. So now our eggplant has been sitting for a while, and it's gotten a lot floppier, and it's released a bunch of the water from it. All right, and we need to dry these off because we don't want to bake with wet food. I'll line these up on a paper towel. And gently press the water off of them. Once all the eggplant slices have been dried, we can set them aside while we work on our focaccia bread. Once the dough is doubled in size, we're ready to turn it out and flatten for our bread. I floured the counter here, but it was really unnecessary. Because of all the oil on the dough, it wasn't going to stick to anything. Using your hands, start pressing the air out and stretching the dough, flattening as you go, into a semi-rectangular shape. Now we're going to switch over to a rolling pin and roll this out to anywhere from a 1/2 inch to 1/4 of an inch thick. Remember, this is bread after all, so leave it a little thicker. Once we achieve the relative shape and thickness we want, we'll transfer it to a baking sheet for the final shaping. Now we're going to add garlic and a generous application of olive oil. And use a brush, fork, spoon, even your hands, to spread this all over, making sure to get the oil and garlic all the way out to the edges. Once done, we're going to allow this to sit for 20 to 30 minutes so that it can start to rise again. Once our dough has risen slightly, we're ready to add freshly chopped oregano, along with freshly chopped basil, and a liberal application of shredded Parmesan cheese. Now you may be wondering, do I have to shred it myself? Yes, you do. The flavor really is better this way. Now we're ready to start adding our eggplant slices. We want to put them right on the edge because we don't want too much of a crust, and overlap them slightly. I also decided that since this was a rather large focaccia bread, I was going to add tomatoes to it, because I had them, and variety is good. Now that we're done adding our toppings, yep, more olive oil. Now we're going to rub it around, make sure each piece of eggplant is thoroughly coated. We're going to add a little salt. Followed by some freshly ground black pepper. And now we're ready to put it into our well preheated 425 degree oven for the next 25 to 30 minutes, or until golden brown. Now while we're waiting for the focaccia, we're going to make a balsamic reduction to go on top of it. So we're going to use balsamic vinegar and sugar. Give that a little stir. We're going to cook that on medium-low, stirring occasionally until it's reduced by about half, which conveniently takes also 25 to 30 minutes. So now our focaccia bread is out of the oven, and I promise, this is the last application of olive oil. I also felt like it needed a little extra cheese. You could probably do this before baking, and it'll help brown the top a little more. Now we're going to allow our focaccia bread to cool down. Traditionally, it's served at room temperature, or just slightly warm. Also, our balsamic drizzle will get much thicker as it cools. Now this balsamic drizzle was completely optional, so feel free to leave it out, but it pairs really nicely with eggplant and tomato. It is quite strong, however, so use sparingly. You can always add more later if you want. So there it is, an eggplant focaccia bread with a balsamic reduction drizzle. This is a really great vegetarian dish. You can serve it as an appetizer with salads or as an hors d'oeuvre at parties. And in my opinion, it's almost as good as pizza. Almost. Not quite, but almost. So the next time you're at the grocery store, I really hope you grab an eggplant and give this recipe a try. For ingredients to this recipe and more, go check out my blog post. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And from my kitchen to yours, thanks for stopping by.
Looking at your camera. Want to take a picture of me? Huh?
Not going to act all silly. How was it?
Dad?
That's good.